Welcome to Cheese In-Depth webinars. I'm Michael Landis, and today we're going to be spending a little bit of time with Lynn and the head cheesemaker, Kuba, from Reyes Farmstead Cheese. And I'd like to take this time right now to introduce you to both of them and turn it over to them. So, Lynn.
Hi, Michael.
Welcome.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. We're excited to talk about Toma today and kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on at the farm today, a little bit post-COVID-19, and eat some cheese and introduce you guys to Kuba. So I don't know how many people have met Kuba. He usually attends the ACS conference. So we're bringing him to you today since we won't be able to gather at the ACS this year. But Kuba, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and how you came to Point Reyes?
So, since like Lynn said, we not gonna see each other at ACS this year, and that's the only show I really attend. So, welcome everybody. I'm originally from Poland, as you can probably tell that I have a little bit of an accent. So, I came to the United States about 15 years ago as a student in an exchange program, and just came over to a small town in Indianapolis where I was working in a small creamery, was making a variety of different products and whatnot, and was supposed to stay only here in the States for a year and a half. Well, obviously, 15 years later, I'm still here, working still in cheese, and I've been working for Point Reyes since 2009, so it's been 11 years. Since that time, we've obviously added some products to our product line, besides Original Blue, which was and still is our flagship cheese. So,
well, let's start by, I know a lot of you, I believe we've got a lot of the trade watching today, which is really great. Thank you for tuning in on Friday afternoon. We wanted to just kind of show you a clip of the farm. So for those of you who have not been here, and since COVID, we've actually been closed because of the obvious reasons, but we want to show you a clip. So we did a really cool drone this year. And as you can see, it's all very green hills everywhere. But this gives you a kind of just a snapshot of what our farm looks like during our season when we're growing our grass for the silage for our cows. So you can see different ponds, stock ponds that the cows will, the water comes from there. In the background, you're seeing Toma Bay. And beyond that ridge, that tree-lined ridge, is the ocean. So we always talk about, happy cows from California. This is definitely an area where cows are very happy because of our mild temperature year-round. We get gentle fog and about 60 degrees throughout the year, give or take 10 or 15. There you can see, this is actually in the springtime. This is what our fields looked like a couple weeks ago when we cut the silage. So you can see where the grass is cut, and we preserve that grass as part of our cow's feed during the year. As most of you said, which signifies that in our name of the company, and we wanted to really emphasize that when we talk about our cheese. So for the first, up until 2018, all of our product was made here on the farm using our own milk. In 2018, we built a second creamery in Petaluma, and that is where the home of Toma is today. Because we were selling all of our cheese with our own milk off the farm, we had to purchase purchase milk from local dairies in the Sonoma County area for our Petaluma plant, which was a great opportunity to support local dairies. Since COVID-19, we're back to using all of our own milk because, of course, our orders have downsized with the lack of food service. So we're back to using our own milk from the farm. The milk that we were purchasing, and we'll talk about that when we get into the make process of Toma, but the milk that we were purchasing does match our milk components, and that's something we really emphasize is that quality of the milk.
yeah, I was gonna add to that. Lynn mentioned the mild climate, and we were very fortunate as well to be able to work with milk, which doesn't really have a whole lot of seasonality because of that mild climate. The milk components stayed pretty consistently the same throughout the year. So it's much easier for us to adjust the recipes than for the folks or friends of ours who makes cheese in Midwest, where their milk component swings are very high, up to 1% in some cases. So so that's really helped us as well make really good, consistent product throughout the year.
So I do just want to mention, most of you guys know us for our original blue. Michael, you have that there. So we're going to taste this last, just to kind of give a little bit of tribute to our original flagship product. And we'll discuss that at that time. But that's all we made for the first 9 years. So I want to talk about our R&D process, research and development, and how we develop a new cheese. Because Toma was our second cheese that we put out in the marketplace. And, you know, everybody knows us as a blue cheese company, which is fantastic. That's what got us to where we are today, and we're still very strong with that. But Toma has been an emerging product that it's really have a cult following. There's so many people that just eat Toma every single day. It's just a great everyday cheese. We'll get into that. But why don't you first talk about how and why we developed Toma?
So, so like Lynn mentioned, you know, 11 years ago, Original Blue was the only cheese Reyes Farmstead had, and the girls back in the day, they really wanted to have some other cheeses available in the market. So the way how we started talking about R&D was, okay, we need to come up with a product which will meet different group of people who maybe are not as crazy about blue cheese, but they also they like to cook and have a cheese which is very versatile. So the R&D started in pretty much 6 months after my employment in 2009, and I started making Goudas, I started making some Alpine style cheeses, doing some combined recipes of both, and trying to figure out which cheese will fit the best. And the Toma came out basically as a kind of a crossover between Gouda and Havarti, with some little tweaks around the recipe, which yielded that flavor of cheese, which is somewhat similar to Gouda, yet having that texture of Havarti, which is a little softer and creamier. So yeah, I think that was one of those ways we approached that. But to backtrack it to R&D a little bit too, the one thing because Toma, before it came out as an official recipe, we've done variation of raw milk cheese. We've done different styles of aging, different size wheels. The one thing we did start from the get-go was the pasteurized version, because we wanted to know what the commercial cultures will produce and what flavors and textures before we would dive into raw milk. And we found that when we tried the raw milk, it was just completely different product, and that indigenous microflora present in milk just a little bit overpowered the flavors we wanted to keep in Toma. So that's why we were back to pasteurize.
Right. So you presented us with, when you went to task with finding a new cheese, Alpine style, a Gouda, and
there was some
the Toma version.
Toma version. There was some other combinations, like I would call it a farmhouse. But and then like I mentioned earlier, you know, different sizes which had actually different flavor complexities as well. So obviously since then we kept the Toma obviously, but we continue to make Gouda, and it's part of our library products, which hopefully will in the next future, you know,
sooner or later, we'll get it out in the marketplace. But that's we started out by aging it 2 years, and so we really only had obviously 4 or 5 releases, and then we started bringing that aging down a little bit. So what he means by library of cheeses is we sell it here off the farm at our culinary center, the Fort, when we have guests that come for classes or tours. And then there's some chefs locally. We have it on our online as well. So it was not readily in stock. We just didn't have a lot of it that we made. It comes in a traditional 20-pound wheel. But it's a really special cheese, and maybe we can do that on our next tasting, Michael. But we are making more of it so that we can put it into distribution.
And
so,
just kind of a note too, it was kind of a mistake to how we end up with this extra aged cheese was because there was this one batch of Gouda which I made following the traditional recipe, which I forgot about. And it just sat in an aging room for over a year. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, what is this cheese? And we start tasting it. And we find, long story short, we found that, year and a half to 2 years makes for very good Gouda.
Yeah, so that's our Gouda story, but we'll talk about that the next show. So back to Toma. So let's talk about what is Toma. So Toma in Italian means a cheese that's made on the farm by the farmer herself or himself. So it really defines what farmstead is. It's that quality control of using your own milk on the same property where you make the cheese. And it's really about quality control. It's the relationship between our herdsman and Kuba, and having that close communication when the cows go out on pasture. What is that milk? We test our milk components every day, and it's a daily discussion, so that we know, what we're trying to put into. We know what's going into the cheese, and then those flavor attributes that we're trying to get out of it. So Toma, in essence, is a farmer's cheese. It's a table cheese, and that's exactly what we wanted and what our customers really wanted. Something that was super accessible and versatile to snack on, cook with, really from morning until night. We really looked at our Italian heritage, and Toma is that definition. If you go to Italy, you'll see lots of Tomas. And they literally, it's part of their everyday diet. So they have that wheel sitting out on the counter all day, and they'll be eating and cooking with it. So we wanted to emulate that diet and make this cheese really is, should be part of your everyday kitchen. And you'll see how we've actually extended that through our different flavors when we start to taste. 59, my parents purchased this property then, and the first 40 years they sold fluid milk. So as you see in the picture here, these are Holstein cows, traditional dairy cows. They are the highest production cow. That's why they're used for fluid milk. And they're super healthy. They average around 13,000 to 15,000 when they're pregnant on their size. They have a 9-month gestation cycle, and we do breed them year round. So our milk flow is constantly happening. The springtime, we have more freshening that are coming in, and we will talk about what's going on in the dairy in a little bit, but you want to talk a little bit more about just milk components that you get from a Holstein compared to a Jersey.
So like Lynn mentioned, the Holsteins were commonly known for dairy cow, for fluid milk, but they are, especially for our climate, like I mentioned earlier, they are really good producing cows, and with help of nutritionists, we have pretty much on every other week basis coming and adjusting the rations constantly to compensate for any changes in the milk component. We're able to maintain those numbers on a fairly high level. I mean, they're not, butterfat is not like Jersey where it's like 4.5%, but we are able to maintain our butterfat at like 4% range. So, which is pretty good, and we are able to maintain that almost year round. So
yeah, that's the key too, which is where we live, and the geography and the climate here gives us that evenness throughout the year. The cows are super comfortable in our temperature.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting how working with nutritionists, how he's able to utilize different feeds throughout the year to maintain that levels. He's using almond hulls, we're using brewer's grain, a little bit of corn and stuff, but it's just there's there's a little bit more science to it than just let the cow out on the pasture and let it graze during the month where the grass is actually green. So
yeah, we talked about TMRs before, the total mixed ration, and that means that combination of different feeds between proteins and carbohydrates and fats, so that it maximizes the cow's energy. So we have I mentioned that we have the grass that we grow, that the cows graze off of certain months of the year, and then we cut it during the late spring, early summer as part of their diet, and we ferment it into silage. So between the grazing and the silage, it's about 30% of their diet comes from our land. And a lot of that obviously is predicated off of where we are and how long of a season we can actually grow our own grass. So if you've been to Northern California, especially out here on the coast, well, in about a month, we're going to have really golden brown hills. We just don't have the rain that other parts of the country will have to keep our grass green year round. So we're really working with what we have. That's why we end up with a mix of about 30% of our own production off of our fields, and then 70% of this mixed ration that our nutritionist helps us with. And all of this is meant to really maximize the cow, its energy, and producing the components that we need for our cheese. So we do not standardize our milk. We use whole milk, and it goes all straight into the vat for all of our cheeses. And one of the new things, which is a whole other class, but I just want to mention it because it's really cool, that we installed robotic milking machines for our cows back in November. It was a phase 1, phase 2. We just completed phase 2. And the good news is it's doing exactly what we had hoped, and it's amazing. I mean, we've increased the cow's production probably 10+%,
yeah.
a little bit more. Basically what it is that it is a standalone robotic milking machine where a cow can enter voluntarily when she wants to get milked. So what it does is it increases that those visits. Instead of us milking every 12 hours, so 2 times a day, that cow can come in and has been averaging around 3 times a day, which naturally increases their production. Because of COVID-19, we've actually decreased our herd a little bit so that we can balance the milk that we're producing, because cows don't stop milking, and we have to put it into the vat, of course, and making cheese. And since our orders have decreased with food service, the lack of food service, we had to decrease our herd just to manage that. So we weren't making too much. We were managing our aging rooms. That's another thing. So lots of problems to solve. But the good news is that by decreasing our herd, our cows were getting to this little sweet spot of where there's not as much competition for eating, and they have a little bit more room in their stalls. Once again, cow comfort is a really important term, because the more comfortable they are, the more they're going to be able to eat during the day, go in and get milked, and that whole cycle of managing their metabolism, their energy, their eating, has increased their production to, I think, what did Brandon say? Brandon's our herdsman. About
11 gallons.
almost like 10.5 gallons per cow a day, which is amazing, amazing. And so it's been really exciting to see through this time period of how we're actually finding our most efficient production for our cows. So next time we'll have to do a video on the robots.
So the other thing I was going to add only about the milk too is that, as Lynn mentioned, the robotic milking and stuff, and us having the constant component, is that being farmstead, we are able to have full control of the quality of that milk. We control the milk basically from the time the cow gets milked all the way to the time the milk gets in the vat. And the nice thing from the cheesemaker standpoint, it's the best thing you can do to your cheese is to work with very fresh milk. And our milk for our cheese is usually no older than 36 hours. Mm-hmm. So, if you take regulations, state regulations or federal regulations on how long can milk be stored, it's 72 hours. So during that time, the quality of milk just continues to decline. So having that high quality control over the main ingredient you have, which is milk, it's very important for us, and that's what gives us ability to produce this wonderful cheese.
So any questions so far, Michael? How you doing over there?
No, not so far. Nice and quiet.
You're good. You're good. Okay.
Nice.
So let's show them a room, our Toma room, our Toma aging room. Do you have a picture of that? And why don't you talk a little bit about how you actually make Toma?
So as Michael will show you guys the room, you will see that the room is very, very tall, and that's what we've learned here in Point Reyes, where we starting making Toma at first on the ranch, where we were limited to the size of the room, to the space, and it's a cheese which is aged for 3 months, so it doesn't sound like that much. However, if you have thousands of wheels, it takes quite a bit of space. So So when we moved production to Petaluma, the idea was to utilize the height of the room, maybe a smaller room, but very tall. And so from the day one, when we decided to move to Petaluma, we knew right away the way we're gonna design that room is we're gonna have a cheese robot, which will turn and brush the wheels on a regular basis. So so we don't break our backs. As this is aging room work is one of the most demanding, I think, role in a cheese production, and being artisanal where you have to turn everything by hand and you're doing that all day long. It's really
And 18 feet high.
it's back-breaking, and you know you just don't retain employees very long neither, because they just get worn out. So so that's why we invested in milking robot, which you guys can see right now on the screen. I'm sorry, not milking robot, cheese robot.
We're totally into robots today,
so anyways,
explain what's happening here, yeah.
So the way how the room is set up is it's got a shelving which is too deep, and the shelf which is on the inside, it's slightly elevated so the robot can reach it. And so the robot will grab the first wheel from the outside first, put it down to be turned, and in the same time it's gonna grab the wheel from the back. And then the motion will be repeated, but basically the wheel which was on the outside goes on the inside.
So you see two right there right now.
So
and that bottom one is also being brushed.
So I'll say kind of a side note, which I find it very fascinating. We've had this robot since December of 2018, I believe, and the robot already, as of right now, it's pretty much close to turning 1 million wheels. So so it's just amazing how much training does it take really to age the cheese. So if I can switch to right now and I'll talk about a little bit of the make process.
Yeah.
So so like Lynn mentioned, we don't standardize the milk, so whatever we get. So Toma, being kind of a combination of Gouda and Havarti, is a wash curd cheese. So obviously, starting the vat, we inoculate the milk with lactic cultures, which will start producing lactic acid, converting lactose to lactic acid. And then once those cultures get used to new environment where they're in, we introduce the rennet, which is a coagulant, which we use microbial rennet, so it's vegetarian. And the rennet, it's an enzyme which is able to convert the fluid milk into gel like within 30 minutes, basically. So once that milk sets into jello, then we cut it into cubes, called the curds. And based on the size of the curd, we are able to manipulate the moisture of the cheese as well. So once the curd is in the right size, then comes the most important step of that cheese is washing the curd. So we pre-draw some of the whey, and then we replace the drain whey with water. Water, what it does is actually it washes the lactose out, so it basically kind of depletes the amount of available lactose for lactic cultures to produce lactic acid. Therefore, they don't over acidify the cheese, and that's how we are able to achieve this very nice creamy texture. So once the curd is washed, we transfer the entire vat. It's being transferred to pre-pressing table, which it's a huge open vat, which we don't put really any weights. It's just small weights on top of it, just to gently pre-press it so the curd can bind together. And within half an hour, we'll cut square blocks and we'll put them in the round forms, basically. And after that, we go straight to the press for a few hours. So, and the pressing, what it does is not only remove some excess moisture, but also allows us to get the paste nice and smooth and consistent. So for most part, what you see when you cut the Toma, it's nice, smooth texture with small eye openings, which are byproduct of one of the cultures produce CO2, carbon dioxide.
And then you take it from there. This is all on the same day.
That's right. That's all on the same day. Then it sits over. Then after a few hours of pressing, we'll take it out, let it sit overnight. In the morning, we'll remove the cheese from the forms. We'll put it in the grinding, which is a huge salt bath, which our drying thing can hold 400 wheels of Toma right now. So it's a deep brining system. So we use a hoist with special cages where we load each cage with 50 wheels. We submerge that cheese for 48 hours, and after 48 hours, then we're ready to take the cheese out. It dries out for a few days, and then that's when the aging work starts. And which that aging work starts with the first 2 weeks. We focus on coating the cheese with clear coating, and clear coating allows us to control the moisture loss from the wheel, as well as prevents from overly excessive mold growth. And that was kind of one of those things we've learned in the early stages when we started making Toma, was that we've had defects on the rind because of the mold and lack of labor. We would struggle with keeping up the exterior of the rinds, and we would get complaints saying, "Oh my God, you guys have the Toma, there's something wrong with the rind, there's some spots on it." And we're like, "Yeah, it's a mold." So we started doing some additional treatments by coating it, and that allows us to actually maintain beautiful
a
color.
cleaner,
Yes.
a cleaner rind to it.
So one other thing I was just going to add is that, as a kind of interesting fact, so our aging room holds 17,500 wheels. So all those wheels are coated 4 times at least.
But we started in Point Reyes. I just want to back up with 4,500 spots in our aging room in Point Reyes. So we went from 4,500 to 17,500. And it was great that we had the demand, and we had ordered the robot from Switzerland, and it didn't arrive till probably 6 months after we had moved in, and we were starting to fill the room up with all of this Toma. And once again, the labor on that, and people always ask, how much did you save? How much labor? How much time did you save with the robot? And we always say, well, we probably weren't turning it enough. I mean, cheesemakers, artisanal cheesemakers, there is so much, as you just heard, through the process of the make. And every time we would move a cheese from one process to the next, it's like we physically have to put it on a cart with the dolly and the trays, and we got to move it, and then the next day you have to do something else with it. So you're constantly moving it. There's so much labor. And then when you're talking about turning that many wheels, as we were growing faster than we were, had the mechanisms to actually turn it on a regular basis. So the robot was amazing, because all of a sudden, it was almost within weeks, we were like, oh wow, the cheese is so much cleaner, because we were able to the robot was able to get to it much quicker.
Well, the one other interesting thing I think I would like to add is to, like, if you're thinking about this cheese coating, right? So we've done it by hand prior last year using small little paint rollers. So each wheel would have to be hand coated, and that was very physical and very time consuming labor. So at some point we found the cheese coating machine, and we have purchased it. The machine arrived, so we decided that we're gonna test it out. And we had, I think at the time we had like 5,000 wheels in the room. It took us 6 hours, and we coated all. So
that's amazing. It's like a car wash for cheese with the
little brushes.
The brush is going over it and waxing it really quick as it goes around. Anyway, it's really fun.
So
come see it.
I guess where we're going with this is just that as we are growing, we are finding different ways of how to, simplify our processes and really make it where our employees are not, getting worn out.
Making their backs,
So, and making for very friendly environment to work.
So, Michael, you ready to taste some cheese?
Absolutely. I am more than ready.
I do want to just take a moment to state that you see Kuba and I here, we spent without masks on, because we work closely together. We're kind of like family. We are family here because we work so closely together, and we're constantly tasting cheese together. That is part of our quality assurance role. And so we, just so that you know, that we are together on this as we're tasting, and this is kind of part of our normal process.
And I think, as we're also being very conscious and cautious about who we meet with and how we, what kind of groups are we in.
We spent hours on policies and our company.
But yeah, entire company pretty much, besides us being in this room right now, anytime we step into any production, we obviously are wearing masks and following all the health protocols. So, yeah.
We have really bad, I don't know about you, Michael, but we have really bad internet here on the farm because we're in such a rural part of West Marin. And so we have done so much to just get Annie, who's our production marketing person, is make sure that we're hardwired in so we wouldn't have any interruption. We wanted to do this outside today, but this is their kind of kind of photo area or video shooting area. But you can't see it right now, but we've got really foggy, windy day, so it would have been really rough out there, a little internet access. But anyway, so let's start by tasting our Toma. So I always like to smell the cheese. And, just I want to point out that we have entered Toma, which has won a lot of awards, which we're really grateful for, with the American Cheese Society, both in Farmstead, which it's won awards, as well as American Original. And the American Original is, Kuba didn't allude to all the secrets of making it, but what makes it American Original, we have to actually submit our differences in the make process compared to the standards of whatever varietal you're submitting it in. And Toma really is one of those cheeses that is defined kind of as a farmer's cheese, so there's no standardization for Toma. You can have it different milk types, you could have it different ages. We make this, as Kuba was suggesting, in a Dutch style because it is a wash curd, it is pressed, it is brined, it follows those basic steps. But because of the combination of cultures and the different temperatures that he's using in pHs, he was able to define this as an American Original. So just wanted to point that out because that's always interesting when you're talking about judging competition. So,
I love the amount of butter and also the tanginess that this brings. It really has a nice richness that comes across. And as you said before, as being a table cheese, this is something that you can enjoy breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacking, dessert, all those things.
And the other thing too about it is it's like we've talked earlier about the R&D and original being versatile in the kitchen. Toma is the same way. It's got such a great meltability that it makes it really versatile in the kitchen as well, and it adds that nice buttery sweet flavor with that little tang at the end. But it really it becomes really widely used tool in the kitchen, if you like.
yeah. I like that, we talk about that butteriness at front, but yet it has this acidity at the end that's we call a grassy tang, similar to like what our cows are eating, we say. But what it does really is it balances out that fat in the beginning and it makes you just kind of want to grab another piece. And so it's buttery rich, but it's not too rich that it fills you up. You constantly want to have more. Michael, we've done a lot of pairings with Toma. And some of my favorites, besides you've done some amazing charcuterie ones, but what was really different is when we pair it with chocolate. Do you remember the one we did with chocolate?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have some chocolate here, but the direction that I went, as I decided to go with peach, because peaches go really well with this. And this is Virginia chutney, sweet peach chutney. And so a little bit of that on here. And I'm not a big, got to cut up a lot of fruit. I like to open up a jar and go from there. Not that I'm completely lazy, but at the same point, I'm just, I don't have to go to the store to buy fresh fruit. I can just open this up, so it works out really well.
So, okay, you just mentioned something, but I got a really nice package from my friend Jessica, and Jessica Little at Sweetgrass the other day. If you don't know about Sweetgrass, check them out. Amazing cheeses, but she also sent me from their shop a peach bourbon jam or preserve, and I did the Toma grilled cheese, and I spread that on the inside, this peach bourbon. It was so good, because once again, like you said, it's got this sweetness. There was, I think it was cardamom in there too, in this peach jam. So preserves are really fun because you could be pairing it whether it's just on a cracker or in a grilled cheese, but it really does add another layer of complexity and experience to Toma. So what are you drinking?
Well, You know, I thought I would stay kind of close to your home and something that we have already done in the past, and this is Lagunitas Hop Stoopid. So,
That's right.
it's something really fun that I like. You know, Hops does really well with this, and so I thought this would be a great way to start the afternoon.
Well, Kuba's on your beer train right now. He's got the Hop Stoopid as well. So highly agree. I am having a Dry Creek Chenin Blanc. So I love Dry Creek in Alexander Valley, Dry Creek Vineyards. This Chenin Blanc, kind of getting back to like those fruit flavors, that it doesn't have a buttery oakiness to it that would overpower or compete with the butteriness in the cheese. But I love this because I get a lot of melon kind of notes in this and a little bit of apple, so it goes really well with the Toma. Yeah. Okay.
The Hop Stoopid works really well with the peach chutney as well, so it gives it a nice flavor. With the bitter chocolate that I picked out, it also brings out more of the butter of the cheese and takes a little bit of the tang away. So you get a little more of that buttery richness that it has, and then you get the nice chocolate, and then you throw in the beer and you get this bready with a little bit of hoppiness. So very nice little pairing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get with Toma too, a lot of, and you always want to smell your cheese first, but kind of that yeasty sourdough kind of aromas, and then also flavor. So when you get into that, what you were saying, that yeastiness, that dough, I get a lot of that with the Toma. So really pleasing. Really good.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have to tell you, we are kind of purists, and we had a lot of customers that were asking for flavored cheeses a few years ago. And we really poo-pooed that, right? We were like, no, we don't do that. Never say never.
Never say never. Well, and then you have somebody who asks, well, can you do something special for us? And it needs to be ready by tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
can you do a beer cheese? Can you do an herb cheese? Yeah, they always want it yesterday.
Mm-hmm. So so with R&D, we didn't mention that, but it's a long process. It can take sometimes can take even years to really master the recipe and figure out all the kinks. So when we decided that we're gonna make small release of the flavored cheeses, we figured that that's gonna be probably the simplest way of approaching the R&D, because the recipe is already set. We're just adding flavors to it. So that's when we began really searching for what herbs or what spices we might add. And we knew, I think from the get-go, we knew that truffles was probably one of them, which was gonna be in a wheelhouse in one way and shape or form. But the other ones, it was kind of more unknown. So we did pretty vast majority of research, and we really did kind of thought outside of the box. I mean, we went as far as orange peels.
We did orange peels. We did all the different spices. We did black peppercorn.
Yeah, we did.
We didn't do coconut.
No,
we made fun of the coconut when we go
didn't
to
do coconut, but we go like Middle Eastern, with like za'atar and there was more traditional like chili flakes and like Lynn mentioned, peppercorns. We did even the dill and
rosemary, and we did basil. We did pretty much everything originally, and then we kind of tabled it for a while. And then in 2018, it was October Cheese Month, and we had a customer here in Northern California that said, "Can you please make something for us for just Cheese Month?" And it was summertime when we got requested, so we had a couple months. We're like, all right, fine, we've been playing around with this. And the Togarashi Japanese 7-spice blend, actually it's called Chutney, and we really fell in love with that. And we thought, okay, we'll do it, and that'll be a good test ground to see how the response is with the customers and if we like it. But the number one goal that we constantly talked about, because we're such purists, was we don't want to make a flavored cheese that's going to mask the flavor of the intent of the cheese. So really that butteriness of Toma and that kind of, once again, that sourdough note and that pleasing tang at the end. we wanted the cheese to come through first and then the spice or herb to come through in a nice subtle finish so that you really get the best of both worlds. We just didn't want to be in that category of mediocre cheese that's just doused with tons of like herbs or spices flavors. So
yeah, I feel like, you know, not generalizing, but there's a lot of cheeses which are using so much spice that you really, it doesn't really, you know, do any service to the base of the product. And I think, you know, there's a lot of producers who actually done really good job doing flavored cheeses, like our friends from Beehive. I think they got the same approach like we had, which is basically make the product which it keeps your base still intact. You get to taste it, like Lynn said, but then you have that enhancement of the flavors from the spices. So,
and Toma really lends to that because it's so buttery up front, and we also wanted subtleness with a nice long finish, which that's how you can really tell good quality milk that's in well-produced cheese, is you've got a nice finish. It's not something that's just going to drop off. So let's taste some more cheese. So the next cheese is TomaProvence. I'm going to talk about how we selected TomaProvence, Kuba.
So
this is Kuba's cheese.
One of the selections, I was always a huge fan of Herb de Provence, and even when I was younger, before I even came to States, and so I knew right away that one of the flavors I'm gonna test the Toma with is gonna be Herb de Provence, and I think the Herbs de Provence they have enough that savory notes, which kind of makes that cheese with those buttery notes and creamy flavors of Toma, like emphasizes those herbs like rosemary and thyme.
So there's no lavender in this one.
That's right.
So that would just overpower it. We didn't want that blend. But as a traditional Herbs de Provence, to me, it's just so homey. It reminds me of Thanksgiving. It's got just the right amount of balance with the herbs and the butteriness of the Toma. I just love this cheese because with all of them as well, the cooking versatility is really important, and especially with TomaProvence because you could be using it in a dish and not have to add the extra herbs. It's all kind of right there in the cheese.
I also like how when you eat it and you taste the buttery note Toma, and then the cheese kind of melts in your mouth, and then the flavors of the herbs actually intensify, like they're like get boosted, you know, and you really taste that herb. So
And it goes really well with the Chenin Blanc because this is made in the French style, and so it just the acidity in the wine really just makes it really elegant, this cheese. And it's as simple as a olive and baguette board with just this cheese to snack on. Or I love cooking with it, like I mentioned. It's great right now. It's great to have just to make a savory galette and grate this and have it melted on top. I love all these cheeses melted in my scrambled eggs in the morning, which is fantastic. With an avocado toast. This one in particular, once again, Thanksgiving, it's all about that hominess. So I love to have it on a chicken or a turkey sandwich. I love it melted, grated on top of roasted potatoes. So this is just this is one of my favorites too. My favorite. We love them all. What do you think, Michael?
Well, I would, go with a Genoa salami. Just a little bit of garlic with this, and a rustic bakery, simple olive oil and sea salt cracker. Just really simple. It's not anything overly complicated because the spices really take on their own. Very, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And you think it's easy just to throw in a different an experiment, and getting back to our R&D process, it is really difficult to find that balance. And how many times did we go back and forth, like how many grams compared to the wheel? And also when you're making cheese by hand, so talk about when you add the herbs, because the pre-press take a while.
So I think that's actually pretty interesting too, how so initial test was made on 10 pounds of curd. We weighed exactly 10 pounds of curd, and then we measured X amount of grams of each spice, and then that was our base. So based on that, we were able to say, okay, we'll just multiply that number by X amount of gallons of milk we have, and we'll know exactly that, we're getting this many pounds of cheese. So we'll just do a proportion. Well, come to find out, especially with Herbe de Provence, was very interesting. We were way off on the first make on a larger scale. And the way and I'll explain why we were off and how did we realize that before we even added to the chili. So the one thing with the spices, with dry spices especially, we steep them in hot water. So we take the very, very hot water and steep them really well, so they soak some moisture, as well as that heat will kill some of the yeast and mold which could be present on the spices. So with Herbe de Provence, as I mentioned, that the reason we knew that we were off is because it called for X amount of grams, and we started steeping. I'm like, well, that's gonna be way too much. So I said, let's just cut it in half. And we realized that that half was enough. So the way how we add the herbs is we actually add them into the vat. So once the curd, as I mentioned, we wash the curd, and then the cheese after that is getting agitated for X amount of times. Right before we transfer the curd to the pre-press table, we drain a little more away, and then we add the spices so they can get evenly mixed up throughout the curd, and then they get pumped over the pre-press table, and the process remains the same after that.
No, so having said that, and you can visually see this sometimes, and actually I see it more in the Toma Rashi, which is the last one we're going to try, but sometimes the herbs or the spices, and once again, more so this, they'll drain to one maybe side of that form that the curds are in.
It all depends on what's in the spices. So like if you think about Herbe de Provence, they're all kind of leafy spices, so they're light. Where
Fully weighted,
yeah. So and where the Togarashi spice has sesame seed, it's got the hemp seed, black pepper, and and then they also got some chili powder to it, which tends to kind of sink down to the bottom as we transfer it into the pre-press table. So there's still
different distribution.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of like mixing by hand as the curd goes into the pre-press table. We still have to manually mix the curd to make sure that the herbs and spices are evenly distributed throughout the entire batch. But it's
interesting.
Yeah,
it's not as easy as you think.
Yeah.
Speaking of not as easy as you think, unless you had another comment on the herbes de Provence. Are you ready to move on, Michael?
I can't stop eating this. I'm almost all the way through the piece because it is just so easy to eat with the flavors. It's so nice having that herbs that are just so subtle, but they're enough in there to bring out a really nice, easy to snack on cheese. I could put this in a recipe like stuffed chicken with herbs in it. There's just so many things that you could do with this. But as for beverages, I was thinking about something that would really go well with this herbs, and that came up with the idea of botanicals. So I went with a Tanqueray and Tonic.
Love that. Well, you've got some gin lovers over here. It's just that we're on California time, so it's still not quite 2 o'clock yet here. But we'll join you later on that one. But yeah, that's a good point. When you're talking about matching, your libation with the cheese. And what's so refreshing about gin and tonic, it's similar to this. It just kind of, with the tonic and the carbonation, kind of washes down that fat, and then it just prepares you to have that next bite.
Well, I get asked all the time about spirits. What can you match up with this or that? And a lot of times the spirit may be overwhelming, but because of the botanicals, because of the little bit of sweetness, and because of the herbiness here, these two are a perfect match. That's just amazing that you can have a gin and tonic and a cheese that work out so well and perfectly together. just really amazing because of the quality of the herbs and the balance of that. Because there's some butter in here, there's a little bit of tang, but really what you get out is that sweet herb flavor.
Yeah. Well, hang on to that gin and tonic. Don't drink all of it because it's one of my favorite pairings with the Toma Rashi, which we'll get to. So out of all of these, Kuba, I would say our next cheese was the most debated, hard to find the balance of what our customers really wanted, what we wanted, and that's the Toma truffle. So truffle it's difficult because there's a lot of different perceptions out there as far as the experience of what Americans have had with truffles, because truffles really haven't been in the United States all that long if you think about the history of food. When it came over from Italy, I would probably say, I don't know, Michael, can you comment when the first time you had a truffle? Probably in the 70s in the United States, 80s? When did you start seeing truffles really, more readily available or on menus? We really wanted something that was subtle, yet had that earthy sweetness to it that was like, okay, it's almost like there's a little bit of this dried strawberry earthiness to it that it's really just a beautiful finish. You still taste the Toma up front. So this is really for those people who love truffles and the subtlety and elegance of it.
Without being overpowered.
Right, because I think Americans are so used to truffle fries and really like very mediocre truffle oil that's added to a lot of dishes, that this is one of those, when you guys make the truffle Toma truffle, and I love to walk into the make room because it's just this perfume and it's not overpowering. It's really just this beautiful sense of this earthiness to it. I
also like how there's a little slight like saltiness at the end to it, which kind of is almost refreshing a little bit. That's what I like about this too a lot, is that the subtleness of the truffle with the buttery flavor of sweetness up front of the Toma with little slight salty little finish to it.
A lot of times when cheesemakers are adding flavors into it, they have this overbearing amount where sometimes you get a cheese with truffle in it and that's all you can taste. But just like the previous cheese, the balance in here is magnificent. I enjoy truffles, but I don't want the truffle to be a truffle. In other words, I'm not eating a truffle, I'm eating cheese and a truffle. And the flavor here is so well balanced. You just really, you get that nice earthiness in the background without really interfering with the beauty of this cheese. And guys, that's amazing. It really is. It's really a great flavor and intensity. And I really didn't want to do much change to it. I'm just going to pair a beer with it.
That's awesome. I think a sparkling wine would go really well if I had a little sparkling here, Prosecco. Now, it's interesting when there was such slight gram variation when we were all saying what our favorite was and we were testing this out, because just a little bit more was overpowering.
Yes.
And everybody's got a different palate. I mean, we went around to our other cheese friends, and I feel like Ted Smith was like our tiebreaker. So we're lucky to be down the street from Cowgirl, and we're like, okay, what do you think? This is because, of course, we have a lot of chiefs in our company, and everybody's got an opinion, and it was just literally, you're just talking like a couple grams different, and everybody had their favorite, and it's really difficult to satisfy a lot of different palates. And then also really educating the consumer. Like I said, a lot of people are used to truffle fries at a ball game or at a restaurant that is just tastes totally, that truffle experience is so different than this. So we hope that we really did well by truffle in creating this cheese.
And that was the easiest easiest flavor to pick, obviously, from too. And as a side story too, you guys went to Italy to.
Yeah, that's how it all started.
Yeah.
So about 4 or 5 years ago, we've always said truffle would be a natural with Toma because of its butteriness. But about 5 years ago, my sisters and I and my dad and my aunt, we all went to Italy and stayed in Umbria. And before we went, of course, we reached out to all of our foodie friends and said, okay, who do you know? What wineries? We want to go truffle hunting. And we got hooked up with the Sabatino family. And literally, when I say that, we were like 20 minutes away, and we met the family, and it was daughters and a father. And so we had a lot of synergies with family business and working with farmers and just their practices and the integrity, the quality, and just their dedication to truffles and taking care of the land and their, like I said, their farmers, the animals, the dogs that were truffle hunting. So we were able to go truffle hunting with them, saw their whole production, and had a wonderful day, a fabulous lunch. And we just walked away and said, these are the type of people that if we can partner with when we make a truffle cheese, we'd be really proud to use their truffles. And so we have been working, we started working with their R&D person with ingredients on the East Coast in New York. And they developed a truffle pate. Why don't you talk about that? Because it's not like we're shaving truffles into the bag.
And that was the other perception at first. When we started working with that pate, we were kind of envisioning those speckles of truffles in it. And if you look at the cheese, there is some slight hues of like a dark spots, but there's just not so many of them. So we've worked actually with those guys too about trying to develop like a truffle crumble, which would go along with the truffle zest or paste, whatever they call it, which comes in the small cans. But ultimately we found that working with this paste is actually so easy, and it was such a high quality product that there was no need to, trying to infuse the specks of truffles in the cheese, as long as the flavor of the cheese was actually, to our satisfaction.
Yeah. One of my favorite ways with this cheese, besides just eating it straight, because I think that's the best expression of the cheese and the truffle, is I like breakfast for dinner. So I like to do kind of a wet scramble, and then you melt the Toma truffle into it, and then you just drizzle it with a little balsamic, and then have a little arugula salad on the side, and it's fantastic. So once again, the meltability kind of translates through all the different flavor tones.
With the slight earthiness that you have in here, this is just, like I said, the balance of flavors are incredible. So I'm pairing this up with Duclaw Brewing, and this is their Dirty Little Freak, which is a coconut caramel chocolate brown ale. So
Wow.
I know you would think that this would just be overwhelming, but these two together are absolutely made in heaven. They are so good.
Wait, where's that beer from again?
It is the Dirty Little Freak from Duclaw, and it is a coconut caramel chocolate brown ale.
Oh,
That sounds
okay. We need to go to Tampa next time for our next session. Can we do that in person?
It's really funny is that in the state of things about being able to go out and procure beers and spirits and things right now, and the spirit guys are all complaining to me on how busy they are, and the beer guys are complaining that they're not getting any business. And I went in to my favorite beer shop, which is usually a candy store. You go in and you get a tremendous amount of selection, and I had picked up beers that I've never, ever heard of before. And I think the reason is that they've actually they're not getting anything new. So all the beers that hadn't sold in like a year are up on the shelf. But I have to say, they're really interesting. And I appreciate the fact that I was able to come up with this little dirty little freak, and it's magnificent.
Okay, well, we'll have to look into that. That's the hard part about artisan craft beers, is that typically they are regional, and so it's hard to have access to them. Too bad we couldn't, well, I guess maybe we could order them online, but we'll have to check it out. So, last one here. Last one is the Toma Rashi, which is one of my favorites. And I know I say that about all of them, but they all have their own distinct personalities. Once again, this is that Japanese 7-spice blend. That includes, and it can be a combination of spices. Similar to Chinese spice, sometimes they rotate, but the normal ones and the ones we have in this spice blend are sesame seed, white, black, hemp seed, nori, ginger, garlic. No garlic. And the Togarashi chili.
Yeah.
Did I think 7 or That's kind of a combination, 7-ish. But it's that Togarashi Japanese chili that is very different, I think, than the pepper jack kind of pepper that they use in that, or hatch chili.
I just found it that, you think about it's gonna be spicy, but like when you're eating it at first, like you don't get any heat, and people are like, I thought it's gonna have a little heat to it, and we were like, wait for it, and the heat just kind of kicks in right at the end, kind of spice it up, the piece you just ate. But normally up front you have more like a nori, and I get a lot of sesame notes up front, combined with the butteriness of the Toma. And then, like I said, right at the end you get this gentle little tickle almost on your tongue, not overpowering like chili flakes where it will just burn your mouth and you just don't taste anything else afterwards.
But you start out with like, okay, so you've got the butter notes, not as pronounced up front as the other flavors, but it's kind of intertwined throughout the flavor experience. The butter kind of comes and goes. But you start out with kind of like this toasted sesame, and then it goes into, so these black specks are also, it's the nori that's in there. And so you get this little bit of umami flavor, and then it goes into the heat of the chili. So it has a lot of complexity and different layers of that, those flavor characteristics that just make it super interesting. But when one of the favorite ways to eat this is you'll use a nori strip, so the dried seaweed that you can get at the stores that kids are snacking on all the time now. And wrap that and use that as a vehicle instead of a cracker. And it really pulls out the umami flavors, and it's just, oh, it's awesome. I just love this as a, you really travel with this cheese. You go to Asia.
Yeah.
And it's just great. Once again, it's great in a lot of Mexican dishes as well as Asian dishes. So you can, put this in a quesadilla. It brings that heat to it. Once again, you add it with the nori, you have it with, you can have poke. So normally we wouldn't do poke and cheese together, but not together. But you'd have, if you just having appetizers, do your poke thing over here, and then do a cheese board with this and nori strips. And the libations that I like with this is definitely a gin and tonic or sake. So those are some of my favorites, but I love this cheese.
Yeah, and like I said, I think my favorite thing about it is that it's just not spicy. It just got this nice gentle spiciness to it, which is pleasant, instead of being, you have to chase it with something because it's like burning our throat.
Right. And definitely the Asian spices has been, this trend, and that is, it's been around for a long time, and it's sticking, and people are really wanting to explore different spice blends. And in particular, when we get a combination of them in this particular spice blend, the Togarashi chili is becoming more known, and the spice blend itself is becoming more known. People are they're searching for that. And as we get older, yes, it's true, we do get older, we're losing our taste buds the older we get. And so, for example, right now, baby boomers, that's like a perfect target market for this, because they're looking for lots of flavor to satisfy their palates. And so that's why we've seen such a surge in spicy foods, Asian foods, and so forth. People are really looking for that flavor. And this is really different. There's really not many people that are using the Togarashi or the tahini spice blend in cheese in particular. But you're starting to see, you can get the spice blend that I put on everything from chicken to fish, pork, everything you can put it on. So I really like it. What do you think, Michael?
Well, I am going to pair this up with Savannah bee honey, this whipped honey with lemon. And I needed to cool this down just a little bit. It's not overly hot. It has a nice balance to it, but still, I really wanted something that would kind of come into its own and brighten it up. So citrus was kind of like my first choice when working with that. So I thought that would be really fun.
I'm excited. Michael, you always come up with these great combinations of, once again, we always talk about pairings and how important it is that one doesn't, first of all, overshadow the other, but you don't want two people to come together that are exactly the same, because that can be kind of boring. So you need something that's going to elevate the total experience and create something new. And I love that citrus. So I want to hear what you think.
It blends out really well, but you still have that tanginess. So to take out that final little bit of edge, I'm using Effie's, their corn cakes, because when you think about this goes really well with Mexican dishes. And if you were going to use like a corn tortilla, so lemon, cheese, corn cake from Effie's Homemade.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. I take it it's good. And with the beer.
Oh, I'm fortunate. I get to do a lot of these, but these 4 cheeses and pairings and that have just been really exceptional. And it's because of the well-balanced ingredients, not over heavy-handed, not too much that's all you taste is that. You add an ingredient and all of a sudden it's the biggest part of it. Where this is absolutely perfect. Add a little bit of whipped honey and lemon and then a little bit of a corn cake. It just all comes out in a flavor. But you need something to kind of help clean your palate because there's so much here. So I picked up a little Pilsner, and this is on North Coast, and it's their Scrimshaw, and it's just a nice little simple, easy Pils that balances out, cleans the palate, and gets you ready for another bite.
I love that. Ooh, I want to try that. We've done a lot of pairings with Effie's and really like their products. They're just everything from texture to flavor. It's a really nice, different accompaniment with the cheeses. And Toma it can stand up to a heavier cracker too. It's not light and delicate. It's not overly salty by any means. So it's just that richness, once again, that buttery richness with a thicker cracker goes really well.
Wonderful. It's well balanced. I'm very fortunate that when I'm done here, I'm able to sit down and finish this off.
Okay, good. That's what it's meant for. We want to get you addicted to it. Speaking of addiction.
Yes.
Pimento.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one of our library products. We only make it for off the farm or at our local farmers market. And it is our pimento cheese. But tell us a little bit about this chef, Kuba, who makes this, by the way, award-winning. It won first place twice now.
No,
at
last year.
yes.
We entered last year first time, I think.
No, Jen won before with pimento. Yeah, I think we've gotten a couple first place and second place. But it's not in retail, so you have to actually call us, and it's on our website in the gift box. But talk a little bit about why we started making pimento.
And since it didn't come across with a PowerPoint on there, when it arrived, I naturally thought that it was just a gift. So we ate it.
How would you rate it?
But there's a little bit of scrap that we can lick out of here. We're going to do because this is amazing. My wife is a Southern girl, and Pimento Cheeses is her litmus test, and you guys passed it with flying colors. And she's putting this on a wrap with some avocado and just loving this for lunch.
Yeah, it's loaded with Toma, and they make it with a lot of love and care in the fork. So hard to reproduce nationally, I think, because they're hand roasting the red bell peppers and using, obviously, one of the best cheeses, Toma. But I'm going to give a little, we got to give a shout out to our executive chef.
So executive chef is very close to my heart. She's my wife. So we get to somewhat work together with each other, not directly, but
she actually was very instrumental in
yes.
picking out the different flavored herbs to match.
The togarashi spice actually was her choice and her suggestion, so we have to give her that credit as well. But pimento is another those cheeses which it takes a good quality cheese to make good quality pimento, but it also takes a great chef to be able to combine the right ingredients together and create the right texture and flavor profile of the cheese to really shine all the ingredients which are involved with this product.
So shout out to Jen. We're addicted to this too. It's great on a burger, by the way. So
or fresh sourdough, freshly baked.
Yeah, all that good stuff. We are okay. I'm just gonna plug for Jen for a minute. We have a Father's Day gift box going out. I think it has pimento in it. If it doesn't, it should, because everybody's barbecuing when we put this on a burger. Anyway, yeah, you can get it directly through us. So. Good tasting Toma, Michael. We did a lot today. We have one more cheese though, and we just wanted to finish with the original blue because it's our baby. And
that's where it starts.
That's where it all started. It's our only raw milk cheese too to this day, and we celebrate that. It has its own distinct flavors. I think it's established itself as a very unique blue in the United States and worldwide. Because of its creamy texture, its flavor components, it's really, once again, it gets back to a really true expression of our milk, that really bright, fresh milk flavor, and then it hits you with that pepper pungency. But once again, it's the balance between that milkiness and that pepperiness and the acidity that comes with that pepper pungency at the end.
And I think there's a lot of sweetness from milk comes through that cheese a lot too. So. But like Lynn said, I think that one of the most unique things about this product is that the texture is really like butter. It really melts in your mouth, and once you get it in the room temperature, it's pretty much spreadable.
It's very hard to say a lot of times that you have a favorite particular cheese, because people ask me all the time, "What's your favorite cheese?" Well, pick a varietal, pick a type. And when we get into blues, there are a handful of amazing blues. And this is it. This is blue cheese. This isn't Gorgonzola, it's not Stilton, it's not Roquefort. This is a true to blue cheese. And if somebody's looking for something to to start with a beautiful, well-balanced, it's sour cream, it's a little mushroom, it's butter, it's got a little bit of salt, it's got everything in there without being just like your blends, well balanced. It's not going to be this salt lick, it's not going to be a sour cream portion, it's not going to be a mushroom cheese. It's all of them in such a nice, pleasant way to enjoy a blue cheese. And I just love this.
Well, it's 20 years old. So it's amazing to think that we've been making this for 20 years. And it's definitely evolved in just its slight ways, but yet it's kept its same flavor characteristic and creaminess. I just think it's just only gotten better as it ages.
I think it's interesting too that I've been working with Original Blue for 11 years, and I don't think there has been a year without any slight adjustments to the recipe. So it's one of those babies you want to nourish and keep evolving, so it gets better and better.
Yeah, but we always refer to it as the workhorse in the kitchen. So once again, one of the reasons with all of our cheeses, we want versatility so that when somebody either sees it, and blue, obviously people know and understand blue cheese, but when they put it in their mouth or they put Toma in their mouth, you know, they know exactly what to do with it. They know what applications, what flavor profiles to pair it with or drinks to pair it with. And with original blue, it has become such a chef favorite for, you know, once again, the workhorse in the kitchen. It goes with sweet, salty, acid, you know, nuts, fruits, you name it, chocolates. It goes with so many things that it just, there's been so many creative ways that chefs have cooked with this. I mean, number one, just on any kind of salad that you can imagine. And on lots of different proteins. By itself, you should try it with that Savannah bee honey butter that you have there, and with that Effie's oat cake. That combination, completely different than the Tomarashi, is going to be outstanding. We've even made blue cheese ice cream with this and put some balsamic strawberries on top. So lots of different combinations. And with this cheese in particular, once again, the sign, I think, of really great quality milk and a good cheesemaker is you've got a beautiful long finish. So it doesn't drop off right away and you know, like you'll get with some commercial blues that are just, they don't age them out to its full extent and it just drops. It's just like you take a bite and it's like, oh, that's a nice blue, and then all of a sudden it ends. This continues on. I just love the finish.
Yeah, and just a little bit of it too goes a long ways, really. You know, it's very, very flavorful.
Which is why I think chefs love it too,
Yeah.
because it really adds a punch to whatever they're doing, and in a smaller portion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and with that, I like everything from I don't know, I like a Manhattan. I always think of something like a little nutty sweetie with it. Obviously a sparkling wine. What do you have? Because I know you have something, you have a full bar back there, Michael. Why we were so unprepared. We only had two things.
Well, you know, while you guys were talking, I was trying this cheese out with blueberries, with the strawberries, with the honey, with the peaches, with the chocolate. I was just devouring little pieces of this while you were doing that. And honestly, it just works so well. There's just such a nice, easy way. And I get told all the time, I've said this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is that I'll hear from somebody saying, I tried blue cheese and I just don't like it. It's like going into the produce department, picking up a vegetable, taking a bite of it and saying, I don't like vegetables. You know, every blue is going to be different. It's going to bring different flavors, from creamy, buttery to intense saltiness and mushrooms and flavors like that. And this cheese goes so well with everything. It's so light, it's so well balanced. Butter, cream, sour cream, mushroom, and a hint of salt. Who wouldn't like that? It adds to everything. And for pairing, I'm going to stick with this Pilsner. It's just so easy to be able to go back and forth. This Pilsner's got a breadiness to it, so it's like having a little cracker with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that too. So we also have, because I can't mention one child without the other, we did get pushed for many years, because remember, this is all we made for the first 9 years was original blue. And everybody kept saying, oh, are you gonna make another blue? Are you gonna make another cheese? And so as we just showcased, we did the Toma as our second cheese to satisfy all the non-blue lovers out there. And then we thought, okay, we kept getting pushed, like, you're a blue cheese company, make another blue. So we created Bay Blue, which is completely opposite of original. So we call that actually kind of our starter gateway blue, because it's sweet, it's earthy, it's more kind of like a Sultan. So that's the beauty of blue vein cheeses, is there's so many different styles and profiles of blue cheeses out there. So if you are a huge blue cheese fan, there's lots to explore. But once again, this is really that workhorse in your kitchen, and just by itself, it's just fantastic. So yeah, it's our baby.
You know, a few years back, there was a very well-established and very famous blue cheese that was pulled out of the market. And at the time I was teaching for hundreds of people all the time and constantly being asked, well, since I can't get this cheese, what would be a good substitute? And it's unique, it is what it is. But what they liked about it was its balance of flavor. And so the first cheese that I would say is that there's one blue cheese out there that's got the same similar balance, but a little bit more richness. And you have to go with the Point Reyes Farmstead Original Blue. And it's always been, and always will be, one of my favorite cheeses in the world. And I'm a big blue fan.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. We've had so much fun over the years educating people. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, and we've learned a lot from you and all these pairings. And I know you're the big beer fan, and it's just been super fun. And I think that these cheeses are really timeless, and that we can continue to find, you know, new freaky beers and new crackers and charcuterie to pair this with. So we want to come back and do this again, maybe with our Gouda. Maybe with our new project that we're working on. We've got a couple new cheeses that we're working on. So put us in the queue. We want to do some more tastings with you.
Well, we have time in the next series to be able to start for that. And I'd love to be able to bring on the Gouda and some other cheeses and really just kind of deep dive a little more, because you guys are amazing for your quality of your cheeses, and really appreciate the time that you took today and being able to come in. And I know how busy you guys are and all the things that you have to do, and to be able to take this time. So it's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And I can't wait until we do something next.
All right. Well, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. It was a pleasure.
Enjoy that, all your drinks and cheese back there. Share some with your wife.
You know it. I'm going to start happy hour. Well, continue on with happy hour with an amazing cheese board. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.